Good morning. This is VirtualPBX admin training. So we'll be here basically every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Slightly late start here. I had some problems with my headphones, so I apologize for that. So on the page here, you see our login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from the VirtualPBX main page. So go to virtualpbx.com, mouse over support. It'll be a pull down, and you can select -login, and that will get you to this page. For our customers, I do recommend bookmarking this page just so you can get here easily going forward. Now to log in, we need your username, which is your email address, your password, which should hopefully was emailed to you, and then the account name, which is typically your customer name, or your company name, excuse me. Now, if for some reason you don't have your password, or you simply forgot, over here to the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, is the Forgot Your Info link. If you click on that, it's going to flip it over. We still need your email address or the username, and then we need one of the following two. We need either the account name or a phone number on the account. And that's one of your main company phone numbers. You would click Reset Password. You will then get an email to your username email address, and there'll be a link there to reset your password. Once you do that, the system will log you out of the system, right, after you've reset your password, so you can re-enter your password here, and then you also have the option to click on Remember Me, so that way you don't have to remember it going forward. So let's go ahead and get signed in here. Now I'm using a test account. It's been around for 6 years, give or take. So by default, I'm going to end up here on the dashboard page. Now, if it's your first time logging into Dash, you actually get to your account page, which I can get to by clicking on my name here at the top of the page. And here, this is where I would change my own email address or my own password. And this is important for admins, right? Because you can change other people's information. You can change your time zone as well as the date format. As an admin, I also have the account level settings over here on the left. And the main thing that's often changed here is the time zone, so you can have it appropriate to where your company is based out of. Now, if you change the account name, that is something you're going to want to make sure you notify our billing team about, so that way they can update all of the records that are associated with your account. So please keep that in mind. Now, on a live account, so your accounts, underneath where it says user here, there'll be another section for billing information. There'll be things like your service plan, the contact info, so the overall person we should be contacting for billing issues, as well as a way to update your credit card. Now, when you're done here, you would just click on the close box and you'll be on the dashboard. Now, one thing I should point out about that first time logging in, the Dash wizard will also pop up to highlight the certain features. You can always skip it if you don't want to read it. I usually do recommend that first time just going through it just so you don't miss anything important. So along here at the top, again, you click on your name, get back to that account page. For anyone who's not going to be in an ACD queue, right, that's a particular feature, then you'll have a D&D toggle here, right? D&D for Do Not Disturb. If it's white, that means it's active, right? If it's basically black with a white outline, then it's not active. Then we got a little help icon here, right, little question mark. So chat with us. This will open up a chat window so you can speak to our support team. They can walk you through setting up a feature that you're looking at. Learn more. This will take you to the support pages. So it's going to open up a new tab, and you can see the relevant guides that we have, as well as some videos. Online store. This will take you to store.virtualpbx.com. This is where you can buy a VoIP phone, right, or a router, etc. Now, there's a blank spot here, and this will be populated with the web phone if you add a web phone to your user. The web phone, right, when you click on that link, when it's here, it opens up a new tab, takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net, and allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls. Right? It's a kind of soft phone, which I'll get to shortly. All right, here Oh, the 3 horizontal line icon or hamburger icon, menu icon. These take you to other features of Dash, like I've already mentioned, ACD queues, among others. We're on the dashboard, which is where we'll be for most of this, but we'll be getting through most of, or actually basically all of those. And then we have the logout icon here. Here on the left, these are other core features of Dash, which we'll be going to. And then here we have total users, right? 20. So these are people who are making and receiving calls. If you're on a user-based plan, the more users you have, the more your bill is going to be. So that's something to be aware of. Then we have total devices, 44, and a breakdown. So first up, we got this web phone, right, which I just mentioned, using Chrome or Firefox. I have 14 of them on this account, and that's that green icon or color band there. Right, cell phone, pretty self-explanatory. The soft phone, right? So just to cover some terminology here, VoIP, right? A VoIP phone, that's voice over internet protocol. Use your internet connection to make and receive calls, whether it's from a computer or a device, right? A soft phone is a software application, usually on a computer, but these days it can be on a tablet, it can be on a smartphone, that you can use to make and receive calls. It's still going to use your internet connection, whether that's via Wi-Fi or your mobile data from your cell phone provider. Right, so I have 11 here. And this can be the VirtualPBX soft phone application. It can be a soft phone from another party, right? Third-party application. So like Counterpath is one of the big companies that has a lot of soft phones. There's many others on the market. Then we have SIP phone. This is a physical VoIP phone. Sits on a desk. All right, this is going to be like a Yealink phone, a Cisco phone, a Polycom, etc. And I've got 4 of them on this account. And then a landline, pretty self-explanatory. Now you notice down here, I have unregistered devices. I have 17 of them. This means, so Dash can tell when a VoIP phone is connected to it, right? Registered. Right, so a registered phone is good. That means we can send calls to that device. Unregistered means we can't send phones to that device, or send calls to that device, excuse me. And this can be something as simple as like someone hasn't logged into their soft phone, right? Or their Yealink phone on their desk isn't plugged in right now. It can be more complicated, right? It can be that they haven't set up the device properly, or there's a network issue, right? So there's a router setting, or their ISP went down. So that's basically just a heads up that there might be something you need to look into. All right, then we've got total numbers. I have 32 phone numbers on the account. Your accounts can have anywhere from 2 to 15 phone numbers as part of your plan price, right? That's what for every month you can have up to those numbers, that number of phone numbers, excuse me. If you go over your allotment, so I'm definitely over that on this account, then I'm paying extra per number. Right, so every number, it's going to range from $1.99 per number to I think it's up to $9.99, depending on the plan. For that, you should double check with our account services team so they can verify A, how many numbers are part of your plan, and then what your overage is if you're over that amount. And then we have a breakdown here for assigned numbers and spare numbers. So an assigned number means you're using it. It goes someplace, right? So someone can call that number and speak to someone, or leave a voicemail, or join a conference, send a fax, right? So in some fashion, it's being used. Spare number is the opposite, right? It's on your account, so it still counts towards your allotment, but you're not using it right now, right? This could be because you had a special promotion that just ended, and you don't want any calls about it anymore, right? So you just, hey, we're gonna put that in spare. Those calls can't get through. Likewise, it could be you got a block of 10 numbers that were in sequence and you just haven't gotten to those last ones yet. Next breakdown is between USDID and US toll-free. That's actually US-Canada toll-free, right? It's an 800 number all the way down from 888 to 833 currently. USDID, that just means a US local number, right? So you can have a phone number in Las Vegas, Nevada. You can have a phone number in Miami, Florida, or wherever else. If you're interested in an international phone number, whether that's in Toronto or in London or in London, UK, because I should specify, you want to email our porting team. That's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. They'll need to know the city and country that you want a phone number in. If there's additional requirements, they will let you know, and we'll need those before we can acquire any number for those particular jurisdictions. And then we'll get you the number and add it to your account. Conference bridges, I have 8. This just means I have 8 users that can host or moderate a conference. Right, so I've enabled the conference bridge feature on 8 people. Over here to the right, we're on our main numbers. Right, so all these numbers, they all go to the same place. They have the same main greeting. Then we've got our conference number. Right, you can have multiple conference numbers if you want, but anyone who's going to join the conference needs to dial this 702 number, whether they're one of my staff members or they're one of my vendors or one of my customers. The fax box number, this enables, having here, one number here enables faxing. This is your inbound fax number. You can currently only have the one main fax box number. The company directory, this is a download link that basically you download a text file. It has your users and their extension numbers. Right? So people want an actual printout of that, or just have it as a PDF or a text file that they can reference on their computer. The cell phone directory download, this is for use with the VirtualPBX cell phone application. So you download this file, then you upload it to the desktop version of our app, or the cell phone app. This allows you to see the status of your other staff members, right? So everyone who's using the cell phone, they'll show up under your contacts list, right? If they're green, that means you can send a call to, you can call them, right? If they're red, the little red icon, then they're on a call. They also have, I think there's idle status and offline status. Store discount code, right here, just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount in our web store at that store.virtualpbx.com. And then lastly, we have the account realm. This is used in a couple things. One is used in programming a third-party soft phone or VoIP phone. It's one of the 3 key pieces of information you need. It's also used for outbound faxing. Currently on Dash, outbound faxing is via email. So you create an email. In the to field of the email, you put the plus sign, the number 1, then the area code in front of the fax number you're sending to. Right? Then you got the @ symbol, and then you put your account realm. And then you simply attach a PDF or a TIFF file and click send. You don't need to type in the body of the email. The system doesn't even look at it. Right? It gets the email, it looks at the to field, says, okay, first part, that's where I'm sending it to. Second part, this is where it's coming from. Grabs first attachment, that's what it tries to convert into analog signal to send out. Right? So only 1 fax per email. There's no cover sheet. So if you want to have a cover sheet, you need to include that as part of your document. All right, up here, caller ID. This is your main or default company caller ID. This pull down will typically show you all of your main numbers. So you select one of them. And then here you'll put in the company caller ID name or CNAME. You can have 15 characters, including spaces and special characters here. All right, so typically your company name or some abbreviation that represent that. Now, once you click Save Changes, that information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support the company caller ID name. Not every carrier that your calls will go through supports CNAME, so that's something to be aware of. But so the CNAME information, right, you pick up your VoIP phone, you make an outbound call to your customer, right? We're transmitting your phone number, right? So this main phone number up here, and this company caller ID name. It's going to go through various carriers, get to whoever you're calling, and hopefully shows up on their phone. But again, not every carrier supports CNAME, so that may not go through. And even for the carriers who do, right, they have ultimate control of what shows up on their phones, on their network. So like when you're calling cell phone providers, right, or someone's cell phone, the cell phone provider, they're the ones who put like that spam risk, right, or telemarketer information, right? I don't know of any company that puts telemarketer or spam risk as their company caller ID name. Seems counterproductive. There's not a lot we can do to change that. That's something we can investigate, but typically that's those cell phone carriers are the ones who determine that shows up there. And I know for like AT&T, I can pay for company caller ID name to show up on my cell phone, but that's like $10 a month, and for my personal use, that's typically not worthwhile. All right, then we've got the company emergency information, or E911. You just put the address that's associated with this phone number. Now, each of your phone numbers can have its own individual E911, which can be important because you might have staff distributed about different areas. So you can have the correct address for your staff members, assuming you have enough phone numbers. And then you would click on Save Changes. Once you click on Save Changes, that CNAME information, that's being transmitted out to those other carriers who support it. It's probably because I didn't change anything. But it takes about 3 business days for those other carriers to support their CNAME or to update their CNAME information. Hold music. So on Dash, you can upload your own hold music. It will play back .wav, .mp3, and .ogg files. You want to make sure they're recorded in mono, not in stereo, and that they're under 1 megabyte in file size. A 1 megabyte MP3 is roughly 5 minutes. And you would simply just browse on your computer to find an MP3 or WAV or OGG, and then you would click this blue and white up arrow icon here to upload it to the system, and click Save Changes. Now, hours is part of main number, so we're just going to go to main number and work our way down. The main number page can take a little bit to load. All right, so first up, you got your main company numbers. And these are all your main numbers, so these are the numbers that people primarily are dialing to get to your business, right? Especially if they've never dealt with you before, right? They saw your ad. Now, if you don't want to use one of these numbers as a main number anymore, you can click Unassign next to it, and that simply moves it to a spare number, right? So you can use it again someplace else. Now, if you're a new sign up and you don't have any numbers, you have a couple options. First, you can add from spare numbers. This means you have other numbers on the account you're just not using, so then you can move it and make it a main number. But if you have no numbers at all on the account, then you would click here under By Numbers, and you have your options for local and toll-free. Toll-free, pretty easy. You select the toll-free prefix you want to use, and you click Search. You can scroll down to see more. If you like a number, you just click Add next to it, puts it in your little cart, shows the number. You can always delete it if you want. You can add multiple numbers at once if you're so inclined, and then you would click on By Numbers. Now, this is the system verify that the number was truly available, and then it's adding it to your account and activating it. And you see here it's now available. For local numbers, slightly more complicated in the fact that you need to know the area code that you want to look in. Let's go with 415. Again, you just do a search and you can add a number. Same process. Now, every now and then, even on the toll-frees, usually 800 number specifically, but you can do a, actually here, oops. Right, you'll get this message. Sorry, we couldn't find a number. That's usually for an area code that's exhausted, right? So this 310 is an original Los Angeles area code. It's been exhausted. There's overlays, right? So other area codes that overlap the same area. So you'd want to look up other area codes for that area and see if we have numbers. Our porting team can do what's called a back order for a number. However, there's no guarantee we're going to get a number, much less when, right? We basically say, hey, we want a number when it comes available. If someone gives up their 310 number, then we have a chance to get it, and then we add it to your account. But you have no say in what that number looks like or is. Now, over here, you see a little gear icon next to each of the numbers. This is where you would update a phone number's caller ID, right? So you can update the outbound CNAME information, as well as turn on the ability to have inbound CNAME information get transmitted to your users. Next up, you have the E911. So this is where you would associate a particular address to one of your phone numbers. Prepend is a VoIP feature. Basically, you can put text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your VoIP phones, on the VoIP phone's display. Right? So it gives your staff a heads up about what that call might be about. Right, so once you have numbers, then you want to look at your office hour strategy. New accounts start off at 24-hour open office. Up to you if you want to keep it that way, but basically means system's ready to take calls all the time. A lot of people change to custom office hours. And if you do so, for each day of the week that you're open, you put a check mark in front of that day. So like I have here through Monday through Friday. And then these boxes to the right, you input your open hours. You can choose from the pull down here. And this is in 24-hour or military time. Down at the bottom, below Sunday, there's also an option to say you're closed for lunch. And then you would indicate your lunch hours in that 24-hour military time. And then any changes you make, you click on Save Changes. All right, office holidays, if you're closed for holidays, all right, put a check mark in front of that. And then over here to the right, we've got where it says Add Holiday. You click on that, and you have your options here for single day, date range, or advanced. Oops. Each one of those creates a new row, right? So like right here, I have President's Day. This is a single day. I give it a name, and I choose the month and the date. All right, date range, just like up here I have for Christmas. Again, give it a name, give it a start date, and an end date. Now notice that there's no year indicator on the date range. So you want to avoid a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Basically, that puts the system in closed all year round. This is why you see here I have a New Year, and I should have a New Year's Eve somewhere. Yeah, here we go. Right, as individual days. All right, and then here, Retreat, this is my advanced example. Right, so I gave it a name, choose a month, and then this column here, you have first through fifth as well as last, and then the day of the week, right? So in this case, the first Friday in July, it's holiday, right? It's company picnic day. And then click on Save Changes after you're done. Now, for any holiday that the date can change, you obviously want to come back after that holiday and change the date. Just be a little bit aware of when the date moves forward a day, right? You probably don't want to come back the next day and change it, right? So like President's Day, like that date can change. If it's on the 15th, I don't want to come in on the 16th and change it for next year to be the 16th, because then I'll be closed for 2 days in a row, right? Just wait a couple days and then change it. All right, incoming call handling. Now, this is for all your main numbers, right? So I have those, I think I left 3 up there. And now you see I have tabs here. So I have open hours, I have lunch hours, so I'm saying I'm going to close for lunch. I have after hours, and then my holidays, right? And these options are all the same in terms of what they do, but you can configure each individually. So during my open hours, for calls coming in on any of my main numbers, right now they're going to my virtual receptionist. This is a link that you can click on. It's going to open up a new window. On the left is your main menu. This is what people press on their phones to navigate through your phone system. All right. You click on Add Route at the bottom here, and you this pull down is 0 through 9, as well as star and the default route. And then here you choose where it's going to go. So let's go up here where I can actually show you. Right. So Smart PBX directory, that's the dial by name directory. Right, you can send a menu option directly to a specific user. Right now, you can also send calls to a call queue. Just be aware, call queues have a fee associated with them, and it depends on your plan. You can send calls to a specific device. This isn't always recommended just because if the device doesn't have voicemail associated with it, right? I mean, eventually the call will end, and then your caller doesn't have a chance to speak to anyone or leave a message. Media file, this is so you can have a message play. Once that media file is done playing, the call ends. Groups are departments. They're related to ACD queues. Groups don't have a fee associated with them, though. They're part of a core feature. Advanced call flows, this would be, typically it's for a secondary attendant. So like you can have what's referred to as submenuing, right? So one for English, two for Spanish. Those two would be submenus, where then you would have an English greeting and Spanish greeting, and then menu options for each of those that go to, like for the Spanish side, would go to Spanish-speaking staff members, for example. And then you have voicemail boxes, right? So you can just say, hey, leave a message here. Now, on the right, you've got your greeting options. First up is text-to-speech, right? You simply type in a greeting, you would click update, save, and then save changes. This is the computerized robotic voice. This is something I recommend for people who are, just starting up, right? Startup business, or especially if they've not ever used a PBX system before and they're still trying to figure out what they're trying to do. Also because it's fast and it's free. Now, once you've clicked that update, save, and save changes, the system saves that greeting with the same file name every time, right? So every time you click on, you make a small change, you click update, save, and save changes, it saves it as main open hours menu TTS. So you could literally have 5 or 10 of the same file name showing up in your greetings manager. What I recommend is each time you make a text-to-speech greeting, right? So after you've clicked save and all that, you go to your greetings tab, which we'll be getting to shortly, find that file and rename it to something you'll recognize. So that way you can always go back to it if you need to, right? You can also delete it there as well if you decide, nope, that's not right. Now, the text-to-speech greeting, you have a character limit of 250 to 350 characters. So that's something to bear in mind. You can upload your own file, right? You would just choose the file here. And again, .wave, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono, under 1 megabyte. And then you would click update, save, and save changes. You can choose from an existing recording. Basically, this will be a pull down that shows all your greeting files that are already on the system. Then you would click update, then save and save changes. Then you've got recorded over the phone. Now, when it says pick up a phone registered in the account, that means a VoIP phone on the account by default. Right, it's a security feature. Now, if you want to use like a cell phone or a landline, right? You have a friend with a great radio voice. What you want to do is under settings, where it says allow outside recording, you want to make sure this is on. The default for accounts is actually off on all of these settings down here. Right, but this one here, if you turn it to on, that means someone can call in from a cell phone or landline and record a greeting, your main greeting over the phone. Now to do that, they also need to have this PIN number. This PIN number is unique to this time of day, right? So this is my open hours, so this PIN number only works during my open hours, right? Once my system goes into after hours mode at 5 o'clock, this PIN number won't work. I can try it, but it will be unrecognized, right? Because after hours has its own PIN number. One caveat about recording it over the phone is that if you have a file in place, right? So you have greeting A is the current greeting that plays when people call you, and then you call in and enter in this PIN number when that greeting plays, right? You're changing that file, right? So you record a new greeting, file name stays the same, you just overwrote the content. So if your greeting A is your default greeting that you use for most of the year, you'd want to unassign it first before you call in and have a different greeting file in place, and then you can overwrite it. All right, next up, we have professional recording services. When you click order here, this will take you to a new website hosted by Snap Recordings. They have about 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have various versions of English and French and Spanish, so you can do multilingual greetings. They have hold treatment, right? A mix of music and a script being read. They have their own pricing, and they have a brief write-up of it here. They have their own different kinds of packages. They deliver to you typically via email, and then you would just upload your own file. All right, down here at the bottom, we have the settings. So first up, we have number of retries on misdial. What this means is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake, right? So right here, I'm saying they can make 2 mistakes, which means they have three chances, right? They get that initial main greeting play. They press, we'll say 4, no. We'll say they press 7, right? Not a valid option. System will say invalid option, play the main greeting again. Let's say they hit 7-7. Again, not a valid option. System plays the main greeting again. If they say, okay, let me hit 9 instead, right? Then that's their last attempt. And in that case, they're going to go to this default route, to the Smart PBX directory. If I don't have a default route, so let's say if I get rid of it here, after that 3rd attempt, the call ends. And the reason to not have a default route is for robodialers, right? Robodialers, basically, if they get into your system here on your virtual receptionist, they have to hit a menu option or an extension number, depending on your settings. If they don't, the call will end. So that way they're not using up less time or less minutes on your account, as well as not getting to a voicemail that you or your staff have to work through. All right, dialing timeout. Right, in this case it's measure 10. This is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press from the inbound caller before it assumes that person is done. I usually recommend making this anywhere from 3 to 5, right? Because it's basically 10 seconds right now that it's waiting for. All right, outside recording we already covered. So next up is allow dialing extensions. So with it off right now, when people call my virtual receptionist, they can only enter the 0 through 5 options. If they know someone's extension, even if they enter it, the system won't let them through. Now, if I want my customers to be able to do that, then I would turn this on. So now if they know the extension number, they can enter it and they get to that person. All right, then down here, we've got suppress the playing of the invalid entry message. So when someone hits that 7, the system tells them invalid entry. If you don't want that message to play, then you simply turn this on. Right. Now, if you made any changes to your main menu, right, so button pressing, or buttons that people can press, or your greetings, or these settings, you need to click Save here. You also need to click Save Changes when you're back on the incoming call handling page. All right, second option here, I'm just switching to lunch hours just to be easier, I guess. This is your live operator answer, right? So during my lunch hours, calls are going to be offered to Aaron. Now this is a pull down, right? So I can select a different user if I want to, right? I can send it to one of my ACD queues. I can send it to a specific phone, right? Specific device. I can send it to a media file. I don't recommend that just because this media file will play and then they'll get to the virtual receptionist and so they'll hear a second file play. And that can be confusing to your customers, especially if you end up choosing the same file because then they hear the same greeting play twice. You can send it to one of your ring groups, right? So I can send it to my receptionist group here, for example. That could be a group of people. So 5 phones can be ringing. One of my staff members can pick up and answer the call. Or I can send it to one of my additional attendants. So basically, call is being offered to whoever you select for 20 seconds. After that 20 seconds, it gets sent to the virtual receptionist. Now, we're under my lunch hours, so I have a different virtual receptionist. Right? So I can add routes here. I'll have a different greeting play. And then I can have these same settings. And then I would click Save, and then Save Changes. All right, after hours. Now again, I can have it here. I'm just for completeness sake, I'm just going to go here. Right. So now in this case, I'm sending calls to this looks like to an ACD queue. Right. So it's going to ring these people for 20 seconds. Again, same basic options. Right. I can send it to users. I can send it to queues. I can send it to devices. I can send it to groups. I can have a media file play, etc. There's one additional option, which is right down here, which I can say skip to voicemail, and then I choose the voicemail box it goes to. This particular setup I typically usually or have often seen on holidays for a small business. All right, holidays, all right, you still have these same options. This one here, I'm sending it to an advanced call phone. This is sending it to, in this case, an alternate attendant. Right, so this could be one of my one of my submenus. It could be a different business I have, just on the same account. But likewise, I could decide, oh no, instead I want to go to the virtual receptionist during my holidays. And you see here again, different menu options. I can choose a greeting, and then save changes. All right, main conference number. So you can have multiple conference numbers, so you can add from spare or buy new numbers. All right, same process as under main number. It just adds them to your main conference number instead. You can have a custom greeting. Now this is a text-to-speech greeting. So you would just click enabled and then type in, again, you have 250 to 350 characters, and then you'd click save. Now, even if you leave this disabled, right, the system, when a call comes in, it says welcome to the conference, and then prompts the user or the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. All right, main fax box number. You can only have the one main fax box number. So if I didn't have one here, right, I would buy from new or add from spare. And then you can click Edit Fax Box. Now, unfortunately, on this account, the fax box on the main fax box is broken. On your accounts, when you click Edit Fax Box, it's going to open up a window with two fields. The first field is for the inbound notifications. So you would put an email address there. Fax comes in. That email address gets an email saying, hey, a fax has come in. Here's the details about the call. Here's an attachment. So they can just, whoever has that email, can double click on the attachment, which is PDF, and view the fax. Now, if someone calls this number, right, this 669 number, they hear fax tones and they hang up, right? Oops, wrong number. That inbound notification person will still get an email saying there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Something to bear in mind. Now, that second field that they can enter, that's for outbound permissions, typically designed to put in a company domain name. Right, so at virtualpbx.com. And so if you put your company domain there, anyone at your company, right, with email, can create an email to send a fax out. They don't have to be a user on your Dash account. All right, let's go to auto attendance, since I've kind of talked about it a little bit, talked around it. So auto attendance, this is a plan-specific feature, meaning it's on some plans, but not all plans. So if you end up being interested in this, you're going to want to talk to our account services team. A couple use cases for auto attendance, and I've mentioned both briefly. The first is for submenuing, right? One for English, two for Spanish. You would create additional attendants for your submenu options, and then they can have their own greetings and their own options themselves to go to users or groups, etc. The other is for multiple businesses, right? So let's say you have multiple small businesses, right? So they each have their own phone number. You want them to each have their own main greeting, but all the calls go to the same staff people. Or you just want them all in the same account so you can see them all at once. That would be the other use case we see. Now, to start, you would click Add Attendance up here at the top, and you give it a name, right? So like the business name. And then you give it an extension number, and then you would click on Create Attendant. Now, the extension number, not going to be really used except by maybe your staff members, right? Because like someone can call, let's say, your dog walking business, and they actually need to talk to your dry cleaning business. right? Your staff member is saying, oh, hold on, I can transfer you over to them, and just enter the extension number for that attendant. They'd get sent to the appropriate attendant, and they'd hear that greeting play for the dry cleaning business, and then they can hit their appropriate menu options. Once you've created a greeting, or an attendant, you can click on the name here, and you notice right here it says unavailable in main menu. That means you're having this as a standalone attendant. If instead we look here down at Jade 2, you see it's available in main menu. This means it's a sub-menu option, right? So it's going to show up under my virtual receptionist, which was there, right? It can show up for Jade or even this hours tackle. Phone numbers field, this is where you would add a phone number to an auto attendant. Right, you can also unassign it. You've got the little gear icon, so you can do the E911, etc. here. Right, add from spare or buy new. And you can have multiple phone numbers for your attendants. The extension box, you can unassign an extension or add a new extension number. And then you got the little wrench icon here. Takes a little bit to load. All right, you notice here I have open hours, I have lunch hours, after hours, and holidays. Right, these times all match what I already set up under main number. Right, so all your businesses have to have the same hours of operation. Right, so if you have someone that, one company that's open 7 days a week and then others that are open 5 days a week, that's going to either require custom work, which means you need to talk to our account services team, or you need to have separate accounts, which again, you'd probably want to talk to the account services team to figure out which is best for you. And that custom work may require a setup fee, depending on how complicated it is. Now, these open hours, after hours, lunch hours, right, you're all going to the virtual receptionist. That's the only option you have. And you click on it, and it's, again, that same main menu greetings and settings that we just looked at under the main number. But then you would just click on Save Changes, and you're good to go. Next up, we have devices. This shows your devices on the account. Green means it's registered, meaning we can send calls to it. Right? Green's a good thing. Red means it's not registered, so we cannot send a call to it. And then black means we've turned it off. Or actually, you've turned it off. You're the one managing your account. Up here at the top, you can add devices. So first up, we have SIP phone, right? That's that physical VoIP phone. Sits on a desk, probably. And then you have these manufacturers to choose from, right? If you click on one, you can see the various models that are supported. It's going to vary by manufacturer. You would find the manufacturer and the make and model here, or the model of the phone that you're going to work. Then you give it a name, and then you need the MAC address of the phone. The MAC address is unique to each device, often a sticker on the back of the phone, or if it's powered on, you can click under menu. Typically under basic settings or general settings, there should be an option for MAC, M-A-C, and you would just enter that information here. And then you would click on Create Device. After you click on Create Device, the only other thing you would need to do is add it to a user. And then it's pretty much ready to go, at least as far as the dashboard is concerned. However, you need to access the phone's web user interface, the web UI. Typically, that's by getting the IP address and entering it into a browser window. And then you need to enter a URL in the auto provisioning section of that phone. Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go here. It will go there. It'll get its configuration file, download it. It's going to reboot a couple times, and then it should show up as a green device. Now, for the specifics of that, because it's going to vary slightly by manufacturer, we have a document under our support pages. So go to virtualpbx.com, go to support. On the right-hand side, about a third of the way down, you're looking for the document called Auto Provisioning Phones. That's going to have screenshots as well as the proper syntax of that URL. And there'll be a couple other settings that the document will want you to verify are set up properly. All right, next up, we've got cell phone. Cell phone and landline are the same. you give it a name, right? So Angela's phone. And then you put +1 area code and phone number, and then you click Create Device. Now, let me bring up one that was already created here. I'm going to go to Advanced and Options. This is a default creation, or the default settings of a cell phone or landline. So when we offer a call, right, so Dash comes in, goes to your user, and it's ringing to your cell phone. When you pick up, right, you'll hear a message saying, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system that yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call. Now, that's not going to work in every situation. For instance, let's say you set up a cell phone device, but it's actually going to an automated answering service for your after-hours calls. Right? So that automated answering service can't press 1. It doesn't know when to do that. So that's why you would come here under the Advanced Options and click on this box in front of Allow Use of Cell Phone's Voicemail. And then you would click Save Changes. So what that does, we offered the call to that phone number, and once we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. Right? We don't wait for that one button press. Now, if this is really your cell phone and you have this setting on, if your cell phone voicemail picks up, then your inbound caller can end up on your cell phone's voicemail. Some people want that, some people don't. And then the other setting that comes up is this one, keep original caller ID. So let's say customer Mary's calling you through your account and it rings to your cell phone. And on your cell phone's display, you see customer Mary's phone number. You don't recognize it. You're tired of those auto warranty calls. So you let it go to voicemail. Maybe you're able to reconnect with that person and complete the sale. If you uncheck this on your cell phone device under Dash, then what happens, instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number on your cell phone, you see your main number. Right? And that's it. If we go back to the dashboard here real quick, hopefully. Right, that's this caller ID number that we selected earlier. So this 408 number shows up on your cell phone's display. So you know it's a work call. So it's probably worthwhile for you to pick up, assuming you're not in the middle of something else. All right, soft phone. If you add a soft phone on the devices page, it's going to default to being a third-party soft phone. So you just give it a name. Right, you would copy and paste the SIP username. If you click on the SIP password box, you can see the SIP password. So you'd copy that, and then your account realm. You use those 3 pieces of information to program your soft phone, or a VoIP phone if it didn't show up under that SIP phone list. Right, then you would create device, add it to a user, and go from there. The web phone you can also add here. However, the web phone, it has its own login. Well, it has a login, I should say. It uses the user login that for your Dash users. So I find it better, or just easier, just to create the web phone on the user page, which we'll be getting to in a little bit here. All right, next up we have the Greetings Manager. So here you can see your greetings that you're on your account. Right, so like I have this main open hours menu TTS run right here. So if I had just created this, I would click on the little wrench icon here and change the name, right? Then click on Save Changes. All right, so you have the names of a file. Source upload means you uploaded it. TTS is text to speech. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. You can download these files so you can listen to them to make sure that if they're relevant or not. And then again, you have that little wrench icon, so you can also delete a file or just simply rename it to something you'll recognize. You can also add files here directly, right? Up here at the top, give it a name, find the file on your computer. And then you would click on Create Greeting, it will upload it, and then it will show up on this list. Groups, these are departments, right? Now groups, like most of these other ones, are a core feature, so there's no additional cost associated with it. Up here at the top, you click Add Group. You give it a name and you give it an extension number. And then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in this group. And then you click on Create Group. Once a group's created, you can click on its name. You can change the name at any time. And then you have this group call attempts. If you look here to the right, you can have a little up and down arrow, so you can change how many times the inbound caller is offered to your staff members. So in this case, I'm offering it to them twice. And then you would click on Save Changes. All right, if you click on the members boxes, you can see how calls are being offered to your staff. Now up here along the top, these are timestamps. This last one you can edit, right? It defaults to 120 seconds. In this case, this one was set to 240. You can do something, these are sliders, right? So I could adjust it, so I can do something like this, referred to as blast ringing or ring all, depending on who you talk to. Right. So call gets offered to the group, it rings everyone's phones until someone picks up. Now, a couple things to keep in mind. When calls come through the groups, it's gonna ring, like say Jean's, all of Jean's devices on her user. It's not gonna listen or obey your follow me calling settings, right? So group calls ring every device on that user. In terms of devices, for a group, you can take calls on a cell phone, a landline, or VoIP phones, right? Now, I mentioned ACD queues. ACD queues can only take calls from a VoIP device, right? So not cell phones or landlines. At least currently, that's something that's still being worked on. Now, you can also click Distribute up here at the top. So now it's ringing in order, right? If I want to change the order, I need to click and drag people around. Do something like that. Now it's still the same order, right? Because Jean still has this initial timestamp. But I just click Distribute again, and so now Aaron's at the top, right, for going first. And then you would click on Save Changes. And those are the only real routing options within a ring group. Groups can have their own extension. They can have multiple if you want, or you can unassign or add an extension number. Groups can have their own phone numbers. Now, one thing to keep in mind, when they have their own phone number, this phone number does not pay attention to your hours of operation. Right? So someone can call this number at 2 in the morning and it will ring through to the group members. This could be bad if you have people's personal cell phones. Or it could be great if you're 24-hour on call. But again, you can add from spare or buy new numbers and add them to the group. You have a little gear icon here as well. Right, so you can add the E911, etc. Group features. All right, first up is ring back. If you enable this, you can upload an mp3.wave.ogg file recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. This will play back when the system detects that we're actually sending calls to a device that's ringing, right? It replaces that ringing sound, right? So call gets offered to your group members. We hear that, okay, we're ringing to something. Instead of playing the ring sound, we play the media file. Now, if for some reason we're offering a call and we're not getting that ring sound, right, for whatever reasons, then the media file will not play because the system doesn't know what to do when it's not getting that ringtone back. Next action, if you enable this, if no one answers, what do you want to do with the call? And this is a pull down. You can send it back to your virtual receptionist, right, your main open hours. You can send it to one of your other attendants. You can send it to one of your call queues. You can send it to a specific phone, right, specific device. You can send it to another ring group or one of your users or to a voicemail box. Allow call forward. If this is enabled, that means your users can make use of call forwarding, i.e. they're sending calls to their to their secondary device, right? Not their main or default device. And then caller ID prepend, if this is enabled, this allows you to put additional information in front of the caller ID that shows up on your VoIP phones. Right? Again, give your staff members a heads up of what the call might be about. Right, next up, we have the number manager. So here we start off with numbers in use. So these are all the numbers that are going someplace. You have the little gear icon. So again, you can set up that caller ID, etc. Then we have the spare numbers tab. So these are the numbers you're not using. Now, right, I have over 30 phone numbers on the account, so I'm paying an overage. If I don't want these numbers at all anymore, I can click on the little checkbox in front of them, for instance, and then now I have this delete option up here. So I just click delete. It says, are you sure? And now I've successfully deleted the numbers, and now they're no longer on my account. So I'm saving money on my bill. Right, I have the option here to buy local and toll-free. And instead of adding it to a specific spot, instead I'm adding it here to my spare numbers, so I can add it from my spare number list to any other area. Then we have the option here to start a port request. A port request is to move a phone number from one carrier to another, right? So say from Verizon to VirtualPBX. Right? You would just, basically you're following the on-screen instructions, give it a name, choose US local or toll-free, click next, and then it wants you to upload a copy of your bill, right? So a PDF. And then it's going to ask you for your address information, as well as the phone numbers that you're going to port. Then it will ask you to download a blank LOA if you don't already have one. LOA stands for Letter of Agency. You need to fill that out and sign it. Now, the LOA, it's asked for like your company information, right? Company name and address. That information should match what the current carrier, so in this case Verizon, has on file for that phone number. Likewise, the person who signs it should be whoever is the authorized user as far as Verizon is concerned. Then you upload the completed and signed LOA through this process. You click submit. You should get an email very quickly after you click submit saying you submitted a port request. By the next business day, you should get a second email from our porting team letting you know, yes, we did get the port request. Here's the things to expect about the port process. If there's any problems with a port request, like let's say the address information was wrong, we get a message from the other carrier saying address mismatch. If we're lucky, they tell us the street number is wrong or the zip code is off, but they don't always tell us that level of detail. But we will pass the information on to you saying, here's the error, rejection that we got. Here's the reason. You're gonna have to double check with the current carrier, so Verizon, find out what's really on file. And that means you probably have to speak to the porting department, not necessarily their support department. Generally speaking, a local number can port anywhere. On average, it's about a week to 3 weeks, depending. I have seen local numbers port in 1 business day. Often that's a Google Voice number that's already been unlocked. Toll-free numbers, typically it's about 3 to 5 business days for the port to complete. All right, users. Shows all your users on the account. A person with a blue suit, that means they're a system admin. The gray person icon is just a standard user. If you need to add users, you just click on Add User up here at the top. You fill out the form. So first name, last name, pretty self-explanatory. Email address used for login needs to be unique for each user. So for instance, if I have like say 5 support people, then I can't use support at VirtualPBX for each one of them, right? They actually have to have their own. Now, I could create fake ones, right? Support one at virtualpbx.com, etc. And then you create a password, and then the system's saying, hey, this is my next available extension because I started with extension 1000. You can edit this. You can make, 5210, whatever extension number you want. I do typically recommend 4-digit extensions just for growth purposes, right? You can use single-digit extensions if you want. And then we have these options down here. So first is one that's automatically checked for you. It's create a voicemail box for the user. This voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So let's say you create the user, then you add a VoIP phone to them, right? So they're at their desk, they have a VoIP phone. They can pick up that VoIP phone, hit *98 on the dial pad of that phone. It will log them directly into their voicemail box that you just created for them at the same time. It will then prompt them to create a PIN number for their voicemail box and then to create a voicemail greeting. It's also set up as their main extension number, so that way when voicemails are left, right, their phone will light up saying, hey, you have a voicemail. Right. Include in the company directory. Right, so they can be the dial by name directory. You can change this later if you want to. Then we got send emails to an alternate address. If you checkmark this, you do need to put a different email address here. So the email address used for login, by default, that's what the system will use to send out your voicemail notifications, right, or your password reset. If you don't want to use that for whatever reasons, you click here to send to an alternate address. You put a different email address here. That email address then becomes where all the voicemails go, or the password reset, etc. And then this one is probably also very important, send credentials to the user, right? So when you click on create user and you have that checked, this user gets an email saying, hey, welcome to Dash, here's your login information. If you need to create more than one person, then you would create user and add another. Now, once a user is created, you can click on their name. Right, you can change their name here if you need to. You have the option here to change your credentials, so you can change their email address as well as their password. You also have the option here to resend them the password reset email. Here's your option to change their voicemail box PIN. And it's a temporary PIN number, so they can then create their own. Here's your option to send to an alternate address. And then here's the option to be in the user directory. This is a pull down, so you can make an admin a user or a user into an admin. Next up, you have the time zone. Right, you just do a search for the city. Right, so this is what that way their voicemails, for instance, have the correct timestamp. Then we have the display language. This is how it will the Dash web pages will display to this user. English, French, German, and Russian are the options. Then we've got ringing timeout in seconds. This is the default amount of time the system is going to send a call to a user. Now, defaults to 20 seconds on a new user. That's plenty of time typically for calls to a landline or a VoIP phone. However, if your user is primarily using a cell phone, you're going to want to change this to 45 seconds or 60. And this is because it takes longer to route a call to a cell phone than it does to a landline, for example. So call comes into any PBX system, right? Gets to a user, and then we send it out to the devices on that user. When we send the call out to a landline device, right, goes to the telecom, they say, oh, it's right here, boom. It goes straight through. Whereas calls being sent out to a cell phone user, or cell phone device, right, goes to the cell phone telecom, they say, hold up a second, they need to find them first. Right, they ping the cell phone towers, they find you, and then the call routes to you. That delay, right, the time it takes to find you is why you need to have a higher ring timeout on your users for cell phones, or your cell phone users, than you do for your landline or VoIP users. All right, users can have extensions, and they can have multiple ones if you want them to. Or you can just unassign it and then assign a new one. Users can have their own phone numbers. Again, you can add from spare or buy new. Again, just like in groups, right? This phone number doesn't listen to your hours of operation, so calls can come in 24/7. Here we've got the devices. All right, you can add new. You've got the same options here: SIP phone, cell phone, landline, etc. Let's see here. I'm going to select a soft phone here. So first you get this little warning message, which you always get on soft phones and the web phone. And then you see here this, again, right now it's defaulting to a third-party soft phone. If I click on the towards the bottom here where it says use third-party application, it will flip it to say use VirtualPBX application. I give it a name, and then I click create device. And then when I click save changes, this Gmail test user, he'll get an email, and it'll have his VirtualPBX soft phone login information, right? Username and password. Then there'll also be links to download the app, so then they can get logged in and be ready to go. Likewise, the web phone, right? You would just give it a name, click create device, click save changes, and then Jay can go to webphone.virtualpbx.net, use his dash login information on Chrome or Firefox, and use that browser to make and receive calls. And then the next time he logs in, he'll have a web phone link here as well. All right, user features. Caller ID number, this is only available if you have your own phone number on a user, right? So then you can click enable. And what this means is the outbound caller ID, when this user makes a call from their VoIP phone, is their own number, right? It's not the main company number. So good for like your sales staff, so that way their potential leads can call them back directly instead of going to the attendant. Call forwarding, right? Off, on, or failover mode. Off means it's not on, not working. On means I'm forwarding calls. Now, this feature, right, you can set up for your users, but your users can also set up themselves via the user portal or from their VoIP phones. There's a feature code that they can use. But again, you select mobile or landline, you put +1 area code and phone number, save changes. So now when calls come to this user, they're going to be sent to this 408 number instead of, say, their VoIP phone. Now, failover mode, if you have this enabled, what this is for your VoIP phone users, right? The system can detect when a VoIP phone becomes unregistered. If a call happens to come through while that happens, the system will automatically forward to this phone number. All right, so that way your staff member can still handle the call, and then afterwards find out why their VoIP phone went offline. Now, this forwarding device, or this forwarding phone number, right, you don't want to add this as a cell phone on the user as well, right? Because then you're creating a loop, essentially. Hotdesking is a VoIP-related feature. If you enable it, you want to create a Hotdesk ID. So if you're using 4-digit examples, for example, I would say use the user's extension number as a Hotdesk ID. Click on Save Changes. So this is for in a office environment where you might be switching desks from day to day, right? So a lot of companies are going with a hybrid scheduling where people are only in a couple of days a week. In that kind of scenario, they may not need as much desk space anymore, right? Because people are only in twice a week. So today's Tuesday, I come into the office, I sit at desk number 7, I pick up the VoIP phone, I hit *11, that turns on Hotdesking. It's then going to ask me for my Hotdesk ID, so I enter 1000, and it then tells me calls will be sent to this device. So for the rest of my workday, any call that's coming to my user, whether I'm in a group, a queue, or someone enters my extension number directly, gonna ring at the phone I happen to be sitting in. Right? End of my day, I pick up the VoIP phone, I hit *12. That turns off Hotdesking. And then the next time I come into the office, we'll say that's Friday, someone's already at desk number 7, I say, "Hi Amanda, how's it going?" I keep walking, I sit down at desk number 23, do the same thing, *11, 1000, now calls are coming to me at desk 23. All right, voicemail box, again, it's created with the user, so that's why it's already active. Voicemail transcription is actually a plan-specific feature. So if that's something you're interested in, you want to talk to our account services team. But basically, the system listens to the voicemail and tries to type it out for you. It's still, you can still have the attachment for the voicemail also be sent. Voicemail to email is by default enabled, and so is attached voicemail to the message. So that means when I get a voicemail, right, I get an email, and it'll tell me like details of the call, right, the date, the time, the phone number, etc. And then there'll be an MP3 file attachment I can just double click on and listen to on my computer. Now, one thing to keep in mind, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, the voicemail box is full and no one else can leave a message. So if your staff is not good about clearing out their voicemails, or you don't, or they just don't want to deal with it, like, oh, I already have it in my email, why do I need to clear it out? You have this option here, which is to delete it after that email goes out. Right, so that way you don't have to worry about the voicemail box getting full, and probably on their computers they have more than enough space to archive their voicemail messages if they need to. And then you would click on Save Changes. Fax Box, you can have your users have their own individual fax box if you want them to. Typically, it's best when you do is to have a dedicated phone number for their fax box. Right, now you have the option here for an extension. If you select an extension, right, and create an extension number for their fax box, this user can only accept inbound faxes. They're not going to be able to fax out. Right, so when they create the email to send a fax out, right, the system checks their user if there's a fax box on the user. If it sees that there's one with an extension number, it uses that extension number for the outbound caller ID. Well, that's not a valid outbound caller ID, so the fax will fail. Whereas if you have a specific phone number for their fax box, it will use that for the outbound caller ID, and the fax will go through. Even if you have a main fax box on the account. Conference Bridge. If you enable this on a user, the only thing you need to create is a PIN number. And then you click on Save Changes. Your users will be able to change that themselves via the user portal. All right, so Follow Me is for users with multiple devices. So we'll click Enable here, and this is what it looks like. So what the system's waiting for is to say, okay, what devices do you want me to use? So you uncheck each device you want to use. And then these are sliders, right? So you can do the ring all thing. Now, again, you have the timestamps along the top, right? Default is 120 seconds. You can click Distribute, so you can have it ring in order. Right, you can do something like that, right? So just like groups. Now, one thing to keep in mind about Follow Me calling, right? Calls from a group that go to this user aren't going to pay attention to Follow Me calling, right? Calls from a queue that go to this user will not pay attention to Follow Me calling. Right? This is only for calls that come straight to the user, right? They enter the user's extension number, or they are transferred to them from someone else. Music on hold. You can upload individual music on hold for your users if you want to. .wave.mp3.ogg recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. And this will supersede the hold music we did on the main dashboard page. Call recording. If you enable it, this is what it will look like. Again, now the system's saying, okay, what kind of calls do you want to record? So inbound internal, right? Coworker Mike called me. Right. Inbound external, customer Mary called me. Outbound internal means I called coworker Mike. Right. Outbound external means I called customer Mary back. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now every account does have storage associated with it. It's going to vary. The amount of storage will vary by depending on the account. And then there's an overage if you go over. To verify the amounts involved, you're going to want to talk to our account services team. You can also link your Dash account to an AWS account. So if you have an account with Amazon Web Services, you can link the two and have your call recording storage sent to AWS. So that way you don't have to worry about overages with us. And then do not disturb means calls go to voicemail. Speaking of voicemail boxes. So each user, right, has their own voicemail box. That's why they have this column is filled out. You can create your own voicemail boxes up here at the top. You just need to give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number. And once you do, then you click on Create a Voicemail Box. You click on the wrench icon next to any voicemail box. You can always review this information, right? So you could use this to call in to the system and record the voicemail greeting over the phone. Right? To do that, you have to go to a main number that goes to the virtual receptionist. And then when you hear the greeting, you hit *97. The system will ask you for the voicemail box number and then the PIN number. And I believe it's option 5 is to get to the personal options to change the greeting. Now, if we go to advanced, we do have a greeting media section. So you can upload a file, right? .wave.mp3.ogg, recorded in mono. And you would want to put it here in media. That would be the default voicemail greeting for this voicemail box. The temporary one, this is for that out of office, right? Vacation voicemail. So if you have something selected here, it's going to supersede the media file, right? Until you put the temporary setting back to none. Next up is recipients. Now, your user voicemail boxes already have a recipient built in, right? It's that email address used for login. That automatically gets the voicemails. For any voicemail box that we create manually, like let's say we're creating it for our ring groups or our ACD queues, then you do want to come in here, click here where it says add a recipient, and then enter an email address. If you only need to add one, you would just click on Save Changes. If you need to add multiple, you would click Add and keep doing so. And again, you can do that also for your user voicemail boxes if you need to. All right, so then we go to options. So for this manually created voicemail box, once I've added a media file and I've added the recipients, then I can click on check mark in front of already set up and say, hey, this voicemail box is ready to go. Again, we have the delete after notification, right? Because I don't want this voicemail box to get full. And I have the attached messages to email, so that way the recipients are getting the voicemail messages. I have the option here to transcribe because that's enabled on my account. Announce only mode, this is if you want a voicemail box that only gives out a message, right? So like on your main greeting, let's say, you'd say, press 9 to hear our hours of operation. They press 9, they come to this voicemail box, and they can hear that information. Call would still end at that point. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now, if you don't need a voicemail box any longer, you can click on the wrench icon and click on Delete. And now I have one less voicemail box. Advanced routing, this is where direct inward system access feature is located. And what that is, DISA for short. This allows you a cell phone or landline user to call into your system, right? So it goes to a main number that goes to the virtual receptionist. They can log in over the phone and then make an outbound call. And when they make that outbound call, instead of having their cell phone number show up as the outbound caller ID, it'd be your main number. So we can click Enable. By default, the system will automatically create a PIN number for you. So if I leave it like this, then I need to make it DISA a menu option, right? So on the virtual receptionist, I say menu option 9 is DISA. I don't have to announce it in my greeting, right? Because this is only for my staff members. Although what you can do is under Edit Settings, you can change the PIN number, but you can also add an extension number. Click Save Changes. So now I don't have to make it a menu option, right? I can call into my main number, goes to the virtual receptionist. When I hear the main greeting play, I enter in this extension number. The system will then prompt me to enter the PIN number. And after I do that, I'll hear dial tone. So then I just enter area code and phone number, and I make my outbound call. And instead of my personal cell phone number showing up as a caller ID, it's going to be this phone number. This 408 number shows up as my outbound caller ID. Now, by default on new accounts, DISA is not enabled. And that is because if someone is able to figure out the PIN number and or the extension number, if you have that enabled, someone can then get into your system, make outbound calls without your knowledge. And that's potentially jack up your phone bill. If this is something you do want enabled, then you'd want to talk to, basically send a request into either our account services team or our support team. The call logs would be a way to see if people are making outbound calls on your account. You see I've had no calls on this account today, but if I click to this month, I have some more calls, and you see I do have outbound calls coming here, although Mike is one of my users. The little green arrow to the right, that's an inbound call, and I see it came down here. It was offered to this 408 number as well as this VoIP phone. Again, the 408 number. And then you see originator canceled. That means that inbound caller hung up before anyone could answer or it got the voicemail. Right, normal clearing just means the call ended normally. The little fire hydrant icon here, this creates an email, right? I'll be going to support.virtualpbx.com. It'll have the technical details. In the body of that email, you're going to want to write the experience you had. Like, your phone didn't actually ring, or you had bad call quality, something of that nature. Our support team will then reach back out to you, probably for further details and or make test calls to see if they can replicate the issue. Under custom, you can change the date range. You can always download this your call logs in CSV. Right, so you can use a spreadsheet program to view them. You can go back 1 year. So if you need to keep detailed records, you probably want to do this every month just so you're not having huge downloads at any given time. Right? And that's an easy way of just labeling, hey, August 2021, right? So that way it's not confusing for you later. All right, feature codes. I've already commented or mentioned a couple of them, like the Hotdesking ones here. But these are basically ways to access different features from a VoIP phone in most cases. The *97 you can actually do from a cell phone or landline because you're calling into your main number. So it's just listening for that key input. This information is on our support pages, so you don't have to log into your Dash account to see the feature codes. There's also a document called the Phone Commands Cheat Sheet. It's a PDF. It has the feature codes, but also a brief explanation of what they are. All right, so this has all been under the dashboard. So let's go over to ACD queues. So ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. It is a call center feature. There are two kinds of queues available on Dash. This is our standard queues. There's also what we refer to as the Pro queues. These are available on various plans as an add-on feature. So meaning you might need to upgrade your plan, right? So that would increase your bill probably. And then to add queues, you have to add per additional fee per queue. So standard queues, I believe they start at $15 per queue per month. And then pro queues, I believe, start at $99. But you're going to want to double check that with our account services team. All right, so creating a queue, you would click on Add New Queue. You give it a name. And then you select a phone number or an extension, kind of one or the other. So we will select this number here. Now we're going to go to the queue configuration. And then here you've got your routing strategies. Unfortunately, the pull down is not working. So round robin equalizes out over time. You have ring all, meaning it's going to ring everybody at once. The ring all is only available on the standard queues. It's not on the pro queues currently. You've got most idle, right? So whoever's been waiting for a call the longest gets the next call that comes in. Then you have least calls, which means who's ever the least amount of connected calls gets the next call that comes in. And then least offered, so the combination of missed and connected calls. So let's say Bob's offered 20 calls but spoke to 2. Mary's been offered 5 and spoke to 5. Under least offered, Mary gets the next call, even though she's already talked to more people. Under least calls, Bob would get the next call that comes in. Now, let's say Donald logs in, right? And Bob and Mary have been in for a couple hours. Under both least calls and least offered, once Donald logs in and is ready, he gets the next call that comes in until he equalizes with one of his coworkers. All right, hold treatment. Again, you can upload a file, .wav, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Queue timeout measured in seconds. This is how much time an inbound caller can wait on hold. The queue call limit, this is how many people can wait on hold. This is on top of whoever's already speaking to your staff members. Immediately timeout if empty. If you enable this, this means if you have no staff members logged in and a call comes into the queue, the system will treat it as if that caller has already hit 3,600 seconds. All right, escalation queue. This would mean you have a second queue, but basically you're sending it call. So if all your staff members are busy, you're sending calls that are waiting on hold in this queue to a second queue. And then escalation call flow after timeout. So after the 3,600 seconds, what are you going to do with the call? You can, if you select none, that means the call just ends. Right? You can send it to one of your other attendants. You can send it to a specific phone, right? Specific device. You can send it to the smart PBX directory. You can send it to one of your ring groups. You can send it to a media file. Again, once that ends, that call ends. You can send it to a user or a voicemail box. Now, this escalation call flow after timeout and the escalation queue. Just for the to explain that interaction. So call comes into this first queue that I'm creating, and then everyone's busy, so it goes to my escalation queue. The system still tracks that 3,600 seconds from the moment that call entered this first queue. Once that timer ends, no matter what queue that caller ended up in, it's going to go follow this escalation call timeout, even if it's in the second or third queue. Then we go to agent settings. Agent recovery time. This is how much time after they're done with a call are you going to give them before the system offers them another call from the queue. Up to 30 seconds is what I typically see. And that can be so they have a time to get a sip of water, finish up their notes, what have you. Force away on reject or missed. If you enable this, this means if an agent misses a call, for whatever reasons, the system puts them in away mode, meaning that it's not going to be offered future calls until they mark themselves as available again. Right, and then agent connect timeout, measured in seconds. Default is 20 because that's enough time for calls to go to a VoIP phone. And then you would click on create queue. Now, again, for calls coming into the queue, your staff can only take calls right now with a VoIP phone, not cell phones, not landlines. So keep that in mind. So they can use a VoIP phone, right? Physical VoIP phone. They can use a soft phone. They can use a web phone. Now, once you've created queues, over here on the left, you want to click on members. This list you're seeing here, these are all the people that are available to be in a queue, right? They're not in all my queues, right? I get to choose which ones they go into. Up here towards the top here, I click on manage members. So on the left, these are the people not currently available to be in queues. I can click on their name and then click on add as members. And so now this Jade faxing test user is available to be in my call center. Right. Likewise, I can move Marie out. Let's say she's no longer, her job responsibilities no longer include being in a call queue. So now I moved her out. Let's go back to the queues. Right. So then once you have queues created and you have members associated to be in queues, if you click on a queue and click on add agents, so now you can add people into be part of the queue member of a specific queue. Then click on Save Changes. Notice the click went to 9. And then once you have agents, you can move agents over to the right to be managers for the queue. Or back to the left if you don't need them to be a manager anymore. Right, for your staff members, right, they can log in to dash.virtualpbx.com and select ACD queues. Once they get here, they would click on Begin Session. And they start off as away, and you see I'm red because I'm away. Now, they have a little phone icon here. They would click on this and select their phone. Right, so VoIP phone. So that's going to be their default device for calls that come into the queue, and it's only going to ring that device. And I do recommend choosing, like if someone got multiple VoIP phones, I do recommend selecting one. Now, when I'm ready to start taking calls, I go back up here to status, and I mark myself as ready. And now I'm green, meaning I'm ready to take a call. If my little bar here turns blue, that means I'm on an inbound call. Let's see, light blue means a call is trying to reach me, it's connecting. Right? Dark blue means I've connected, I'm speaking to somebody. Yellow means I'm on an external call, whether that's outbound to a customer or to another staff member. And then gold is I'm on recovery time. Right, so then lunchtime, I mark myself away. End of my day, I end my session. Now, for the pro queues, there's a third icon here for performance, so you can look at multiple agents and see how they're doing in relation to each other. The pro queues, you can also, as a manager or admin, you can eavesdrop in on a call. You can whisper, right? So you can help your agent out as they're on a call, or simply barge and essentially take over the call, right? Blacklist is an included feature, so no additional fees. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are not allowing to connect to your system. So you would click on Edit Blacklist here to the left, or to the right, sorry. And then if you don't have a list already, you would click Add to create a new list. Or you would just click Edit, or click on Edit an existing list. So you give it a name, and then you have the option to block anonymous. This means if we do not get valid inbound caller ID, and you have this on, that means you're blocking the call. They get busy tone. Down here, you click on Add Number, and then you put +1 area code and phone number of any phone number that you want to block. And then you keep clicking Add. Right? So you can have a really long list. Right? You don't have to have individual lists like we have here. So when you're done adding phone numbers, you would click Save. You go back to Settings, and then you make sure the list is over here on the right under Selected. So these 3 lists are in use, right? So any phone numbers that are on these lists, they try to call any of my phone numbers on my account, whether it's a main number, even the fax number, whatever, they get busy tone. And then you just click Update to make sure it's being active. Dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. And what this does is allows you to change, for your VoIP phone users, to change the outbound caller ID depending on various rules. So we'll look at this first one here. Right, you give it a name, you choose a phone number that's on your account, right? Whether it's a main number, a number on a specific user group, whatever. And then in this case, I have created a feature code. So my VoIP phone users, they pick up their handset, they hit *71, they enter the area code and phone number they're going to dial out to. And instead of what my main company number showing up, they're going to have this 918 phone number show up as their caller ID. And then obviously I would click Save Changes to create the rule. Another way to do it is under this top one here. Okay, I called it 408 area code. I selected this 408 phone number. So whenever my VoIP phone users start a call with the 408 area code, the system will automatically put them as a 408 phone number as their outbound caller ID, or this one specifically. Right, so it looks like to the person they're calling, it's a local call. And then you click on Save Changes. The faxes or Fax Manager, again, this is included in the account. You can get to any fax box. And you can see they're faxing for inbound and outbound. And you can see here, faxed out several times. You can see the phone number I sent from, phone number I sent to, number of pages. I can download that file if I need to. I can also click so I can delete them if necessary, or resend the fax. The email to fax logs. If you have anything here, over here on the right under details, there'll be a little eyeball icon. You can click on that and I'll give you some additional details about why the fax failed. Most commonly, it's like someone used a personal email address versus a company email address, or they forgot to put an attachment. All right, the monitor, this is a plan-specific feature. Basically, I can see the status of my users or specific devices. Right, I can also change it from available to busy. Over here, right, I can see active inbound calls as well as parked calls. If there's a parked call, you'll also see the parking spot number. The number manager basically takes you back to your spare numbers, so you can buy numbers, port numbers, etc., or flip over to numbers in use. The recording manager, it doesn't work with the streaming software, but if you have AWS storage linked, it will show you what's on AWS, so you can look at it. Otherwise, it will take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com. You would use your dash login there and view your recordings there. You can sort by date and search by phone number. Okay, you can play back the recordings, you can download them, delete them, etc. Reports, this is a plan-specific feature. This is advanced reporting. Again, that takes you to reports.virtualpbx.com, ask for your login. This allows you to create your own reports, so you can get a better idea of what's going on with your system. It's going to be more detailed than the call logs. We do have a demo on this YouTube channel. If you go into the videos list, you look for advanced reporting demo. It's like 6 or 7 minutes. It gives you a good idea of what the reports can do. Voicemails, this takes you to the voicemail manager. This is included in all plans. And you can get to any voicemail box. And you can see the status of their voicemails, like when they came in, at the time, who called in, what phone number they actually dialed, the duration of the message. You can listen to the message, you can download it, that's some details. Now, as an admin, if you click in front of it, you can move the voicemail to a different voicemail box, as well as you can mark it as, keep it as new, listened, etc. Webhooks, this links Dash to other software. You basically just need to create your own webhook. You can see samples of what we've done at developer.virtualpbx.com. If this is something you're interested in, so like linking Dash to say Slack, for example, you're going to want to talk to our sales team. They have more information on that. And then lastly, the user portal. Every user has their own individual user portal. So as an admin, I cannot get to another user's user portal. I can only get to my own. But you can get to everything if you need to. All right, so here's my voicemail box. Now, as a user, if I put a check mark in front of it, right, I can only change its status. I can't move it to another voicemail box. All right, but again, I see the date and the time, who the call came from, what number they dialed, the duration. I can play it back. I can listen to it. Under call history, I can see calls that came in and out. I can adjust the dates if I need to. Faxes, I can see my fax history. So outbound faxes here, or if I had inbound, they'd be green arrows to the right. The contact list, this shows everything within your Dash account, right? So all the users, the groups, etc. Users cannot add to the contact list, right? So your sales staff would not be able to add their client list to this. Conference tab. So over here to the right, this is where your users would update their PIN numbers, right? So the moderator PIN and the participant PIN number. Then they have the option here, does someone, when people enter, are they joining muted or are they joining deafened? And then as well as, do you play entry and exit tones? Up here at the top, you can invite another Dash user to your conference. You can lock a conference so other people cannot join. You can mute everybody, unmute everybody, or end the conference. And within a conference, you can actually mute a specific person as well as kick a specific person. And then settings and devices, this is where your users would set up their own call forwarding. Right? They would just click on the checkbox here, put +1 area code and phone number, and then they would click save. And that is everything. So I'm going to go back to the dashboard here. Didn't notice any questions. So that being the case, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. And we'll be back here again next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. Thank you for your time today, and have a wonderful day.